Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Football League Cup podcast. I'm Fred, and I'm joined by Chris today, who's going to be delivering the news on some of the hottest transfer topics out there at the moment. Chris?
Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode on the transfers. So we're just going to go through quite a few hot transfers, as Fred has said, provide you some details and the latest updates to those transfers and a couple of interesting stories at the end.
Yeah. Well, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. But as she said, we're going to discuss some of the hottest transfer topics at the moment, and there's none bigger than Raphael Varane at the moment. There are a lot of links linking him to Manchester United, very strong links. What's the latest on that?
So with Varane, I mean, there's been a lot of discussions ongoing for the last few months with Madrid, as I've said. A lot of contract rejections from Varane to Real Madrid. The last one was about 7.5, as I said. Now the deal is close to an agreement. Contracts are already agreed in the sense of, in principle, they're absolutely fine. And what Manchester United are offering them around about 12 million in net, so that's good. So it's all looking positive, and the likelihood is Varane is off to Manchester United to go and play his football next year, and he does want a new challenge, which a lot of journalists have spoken about. So the issue is Madrid have got a lot of issues, and he's in his last year of his contract, Fred. So it's reasonable and economical wise is to sell him now for a reasonable fee. Manchester United are getting a world class defender, someone that suits their club. Obviously, there are other centre backs out, as we've discussed before, that have good potential as well, which we'll talk about. But Varane is the name on the list for Ollie, and it was the name on the list since last year. So, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, the deal has progressed massively because Varane has said he wants to go to Manchester United, and he's officially said that to Real Madrid. So, but what I will say is Varane is a professional, so he's very respectful towards Real Madrid, and he doesn't want to upset the apple cart, we'll say, in terms of that. But he does want the deal to get done, and it's quite similar to how Sancho went, as you know, Fred. So we'll see a few more updates towards the end of the week, but it's looking massively positive, and we should see Rafa Varane playing for Manchester United next season, and hopefully he will get in the ground running. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, moving on to another French player, Paul Pogba. His future also seems to be up in the air at the moment at Manchester United. There've also been some strong links that he could be on his way to PSG. What's the latest on that?
There's nothing advanced with Paul Pogba at the moment. Now, yes, Paris Saint-Germain do want that type of midfielder. Manchester United want at least 60 million euros if they're going to sell him, and obviously they're looking at other midfielders as well. So until they've identified a replacement for Pogba, there's going to be nothing in it. I think it's an extremely difficult deal for anyone to do this summer. And personally, at the moment, is that Pogba hasn't signed a new contract, so we might be in a case of where he goes free next year, which is a bit mental. And I mean, but my question to you, Fred, in terms of Paul Pogba, is it such a bad thing him leaving Manchester United, because he cost a lot of money and he hasn't performed consistently, and he's always flirted with the idea of leaving the club? So if I'm a Manchester United fan or a neutral, I'd be looking at it and saying, well, we can get someone in who wants to play for the club. Do you see what I mean, Fred? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I agree with you. I think it might not be a bad thing for Manchester United to leave, for Paul Pogba to leave Manchester United. Sorry, as you said, he's been playing with clubs for so many years now. But at the same time, he is a top quality midfielder. And I think any club losing him would be a massive loss. So I think they just have to be careful about how they go about it. Is it worth losing him? Or at the same time, is it worth keeping him while he flirts with other clubs for maybe a few more years?
And let's see. As I said, he could still sign a new contract, Fred, because it's 50-50 at the moment. But as I said, there's nothing advanced with Paul Pogba, as I stipulated with the details before.
Yeah. Well, moving on, Manchester United, they are bringing a few players in, as you said, Sancho and now Varane. who could we see potentially leaving Manchester United and for a price?
Well, there's a lot of different players that potentially can leave, and obviously there's been no outgoings at the moment because they're in pre-season, and a lot of the first team players are not back, so they're using them as such. So you've got the likes of Andres Pereira, which I'm sure Manchester United would love to see the back of. Talented boy, but hasn't done it at Manchester United level, so he could likely go, and I think United would like for him to go on a permanent switch away. So he's one of the possibles. Now, I've heard stories, and obviously Ollie has said that Jesse Lingard has a potential place with his plans, but I think that's just a case of him saying we don't have to sell him, so they don't want to reduce the fee as such. So they're looking for between 20 and 25 million for him. So I think, although what Ollie said, I do think he's up for sale from my understanding that's been provided to me. Phil Jones, which hasn't played for, I think, since last January, was it? Not this January, but the January before, which is crazy to think that he's still got 2 years left on his contract. But, United would like to sell him or even just get rid of him at that point. And then there's the likes of Chong that will go on loan. I think he's off loan anyway. Palestri as well will definitely go on a loan. I think they'll keep Ahmed Diallo because of the amount of money they spend on him. It wouldn't be a good idea to send him on a loan. I think his progression will be stored, especially Rashford, who might have a surgery. They might need him definitely for that position as well. So, and there's a couple of other potentials that might go, like Brandon Williams. I know Alex Telles, there's been discussions around him, but unless United get a replacement, he will remain at Manchester United. So Zabi as well will be leaving on loan as well. So there's a lot of, Dan James is a possible as well. No longer might not be required, but we'll see with that one. So there's a lot of outgoings, but I suspect them to be done in August when United have got most of their transfer incomings out of the way, and they've got all their first teams back for the last bit of the pre-season, Fred.
Yeah, well, Manchester United are doing a lot this summer. But moving on to Bayern Munich, a club, I mean, they won the treble, I think, was it 2 years ago with Hansi Flick. Kingsley Coman, who scored the winning goal in that Champions League final, if you remember that. He's been linked to several clubs such as Chelsea, Juventus. Could we see him leaving Bayern this summer, or what's the situation around him?
The thing is about Kingsley Coman is, and what I've understanding is that, and you'll probably understand this as well, is that his market value is up to around 65 million to 80. So Bayern Munich are asking for a hell of a lot of money, which I don't think any club is going to look at that this season. So I can't see Coman leaving. I think Liverpool would like Coman because they definitely want a winger, so they might try, but that's going to be codependent on sales and any people that might be leaving in those positions. So they would like to look at it. Chelsea would also probably like to look at it as well. But I'm not quite sure I would want to pay 80 million euros for Coman. Would you? He's got a bad injury record, I know, and hasn't played a lot in the last few seasons. So difficult deal to do, Fred. Talented boy, but it's extremely difficult. I can see Bayern Munich extending his contract. With that one, they're quite good with those things, and not a lot of players leave Bayern Munich. So, but as I said, Chelsea have got the likes of Adoy and those sort of things, and they might include in the deal, which is mental because he's talented. They should be doing that. But there's those options. But we might see a little bit more of that. But at the moment, it's looking like he's staying at the club.
Yeah, well, another player, I mean, by the rumors, Leon Goretzka, it looks like he might be off from Bayern Munich. I don't believe it personally. What's the situation around Leon Goretzka? Because he's been linked to Manchester United, which seems weird. But what's the situation?
So in the last couple of days, I mean, there's been a development around that in the sense that Manchester United have offered him a contract offer, which I can confirm is valid. But I think it's more of a case of them looking at midfielders next year because they might lose Pogba. So they're looking at those scenarios. What I think is, and what we know about Leon Goretzka, in the last couple of months, he's understood what the likes of Lewandowski, Kimmich, those sort of players, even Sane, are on in terms of wages. So he would like a little bit more, which is somewhere around 20 million, I was told. But I think it's a little bit lower than that, around 18. My personal feeling, because at the moment we don't know, is that he will sign a new contract with Bayern Munich. I don't see him leaving. I think Bayern Munich will do something to, because he's quite pivotal for them, and obviously Kimmich, I think we'll see them sign a new contract. But as I said, yeah, Manchester United's general interest is real because he's a very talented midfielder. Of course, you're going to be involved. But it's a similar scenario as last year where United wanted Varane for this summer, but they were apprehensive and they didn't know. So they're kind of just putting the feelers out. But my gut feeling is he's going to stay at Bayern Munich. I think you're probably the same with me on that, Fred.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you mentioned a player there, Lewandowski, 32 now. I mean, still a world-class striker. I think the best striker in the world at the moment. He's also been linked to clubs like Chelsea and linked with a move away from Bayern Munich. What's the situation around him as well?
With Lewandowski, I think at some point in his career he will move away from Bayern Munich. Because they're interested in Haaland as well, of course, which we'll talk about later on. But I think with Lewandowski is that next season he'll still be a Bayern Munich player. I think Chelsea are not going to be able to buy him for 50, 60 million, which is what his market value is given his age. But Lewandowski is another one that I can't see him moving this summer. He's too key for Bayern Munich to stay. So he'll stay at the club, and I don't think these rumours are true. I think, there's a position of where Chelsea need a striker this summer, so they're getting linked to everyone. And it's the same as what Manchester United were last summer. They were getting linked to everyone, but if you look at it 99% of the time, there's no concrete interest there. So I heard something about a £50 million bid, which, Bayern Munich would just rebuff. So I don't think those rumours are true. I just think Chelsea are actively looking for a striker, and his name has popped up because his contract and length and those sort of things. So he's key, and he's already had the discussion with the new Bayern Munich manager Nagelsmann anyway about next season. So I don't see anything but that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Lewandowski performs under Nagelsmann this season. Moving on, let's talk about another striker, forward, who's been a hot topic over the last few weeks, Griezmann.
Yeah.
We've heard some rumors that he could have a swap deal involving Saul Niguez, who we'll talk about later, with Atletico Madrid. What's the situation around that?
So with Griezmann, he would love to go back to Atletico Madrid, right? But the issues with Griezmann and Atletico Madrid is that his wage is a ridiculous amount. You've seen it, Fred. It's like 700,000 euros, which is mental, and that's why Barcelona are in the problems they've got. Which they, quite frankly, they've put themselves in that position. But with Griezmann, he would love to go back to Atletico Madrid. Now, there might be a point that deal, at the moment, that deal is stalling because of money and because of wages and those sort of things, right? But the issue we've got the moment is that we might see at the end of August where Chelsea might step in and get a loan and pay his wages and those sort of things. So we might see that as a possible solution if Chelsea can't find a striker this summer. So that's a potential, but that's not guaranteed. So Chelsea fans need to take that with a pinch of salt. And he might end up staying at Barcelona. So Barcelona see him as a player that they can move on because his wages, he's now 30, his wages are quite high. Barcelona have got Aguero, they've got Memphis Depay coming in, so and they've still got some Dembele, so they've got players. They don't need Griezmann anymore as such. So he would love to go back to Atletico Madrid, but you've seen the recent statement from Diego Simeone where he said he hopes Griezmann does beautiful things at Barcelona. So I think the deal might be stalling there, and we might see a Premier League switch, which he's flirted with in the past, with the likes of Manchester United. So let's see. It's one that's not really advanced yet anywhere else. But Barcelona definitely want to try and sell him this summer. But it might end up being a loan, Fred, as I said.
Yeah. Astronomical wages is understandable. I think ridiculous as well it will be a loan. But we mentioned Saul that he's been linked to, apart from Barcelona, he's been linked to Liverpool and Manchester United. Can you give us an insight on his current situation.
So yeah, so Sal would like to go to Barcelona. However, as I just pointed out with the Griezmann deal, it's stalling. So likelihood is decreasing as we go along. Absolutely, Manchester United are interested in him, but there's nothing advanced. There's nothing advanced with Manchester United, and there is nothing advanced with Liverpool at the moment. But what I will say about that deal is you can do it between 40 to 50 million euros, which is incredibly cheap, considering the talent that he's got. So, if the likes of Pogba leave Manchester United, then I can assure you that Manchester United will actively try and advance on a deal like that. But also Liverpool trying to sort out Henderson's future, so they might step in and look at it at some point. So it could be a case where it goes down to Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United trying to get Sal. So let's watch out for that one. But at the moment, there is nothing advanced. Still trying to sort something out with Barcelona, but at the moment that's decreasing as we go along. But he's a quality player, Fred. So of course, clubs are going to be involved.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be interesting to see where Sal ends up. But another player who I quite like, and I'm sure you know a lot about this player, Paulo Dybala. He's not had.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 years ago he was amazing. I remember at a time he was one of my favorite players. But in the last 2 years, he's kind of dipped due to injuries, been out of form, etc. What's the situation around Dybala? Could we see him sign a new contract now that Allegri is back, or could we see him move to another club?
Well, look, I mean, I'm a Juventus fan, so I rate him extremely highly. I just think he's had the last few managers haven't played to his strengths or the tactics that they've got. So, if you get the best out of Dybala, he can be absolutely quality player. And he's still fairly young anyway. So I think he's around 27 years old. So, he still hasn't technically hit his prime. And you can play him as a second striker or as Cam. But with Dybala, there's not many clubs interested in him. Barcelona and Real Madrid a couple of years ago were. The likes of Spurs won't be able to get him because he would still won Champions League. Arsenal looked at him at some point, but again, it's Champions League football, so it's difficult for them. I personally, and Allegri's come back, and Allegri does like Dybala, so I think he'll have another season at Juventus, from what I understand, and then we might see what next year brings after that. But I'm hoping we can see the best of Dybala with Allegri, because I've waited for a while to see it, because I know 100%. How good he is.
Yeah, well, moving on, Jules Koundé. We're going to talk about Jules Koundé and Pau Torres. I think two of the best upcoming centre-backs in Europe at the moment. Torres, who was linked to Manchester United quite heavily, that seems to have died down with Varane now. What's the situation around those two players? We've also heard that Koundé might be on his way to Spurs, although he rejected that offer.
What I want to do before I do that is I want to ask you a question. Now, would you, and I think we've had these discussions, would you think that Pau Torres and Jules Koundé would have been a better switch for Manchester United as opposed to Varane? Would be my answer. And then I'll give you the updates of where those two players are. Because I would like to hear your side from it. I know we've had a debate on it, but it'll be interesting to see, because from a neutral's point of view, I always think it's less biased. If I ask you that.
I think it's quite tricky for Manchester United. I think Varane would be the best option, because I think they're trying to win something now. If it was a couple of years ago, I'd probably say Pau Torres would be the best option. But now Varane has the pedigree. He's still a top quality player. So I think, I'd go with Varane. But I think for other clubs or in general, I'd probably go with Pau Torres or Jules Koundé, because I think Varane, people don't agree with me, but I think his quality has depreciated over the past season. So I'd say Varane for Manchester United.
I mean, I think that's understandable, but I think from a United perspective, you're absolutely right. They need someone in there that's won titles and can be a leader at the back. If they were in a position where they were winning titles, they would go for someone like Pau Torres, because they could take that particular risk. And absolutely, the defenders will change and have to change the way they do, and they do lose pace. So you're correct on that. What I will say about Pau Torres is I don't see him moving anymore this season, which will make you happy, I'm sure. But I think Pau Torres needs another season at Villarreal. with Emery, and obviously they're in the Champions League now. So why do you even need to move? From my understanding, is Pau Torres is happy at Villarreal.
Yeah,
Would like to leave at some point. The likes of Real Madrid definitely will be looking, because he's kind of the same was Barcelona. But with Pau Torres, I mean, he could go to Man City. That's been talked about as well. But I think, and personally, what I've heard is that he's, Villarreal have got Champions League football. They've got a decent team, and they are looking in the market. So why leave? Because they could be quite a good team next year, and they're going to be in the Champions League. So for me, Pau Torres looks like he's going to stay another year, Fred, which you'll be happy about,
yeah,
of course.
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah, 100%. I think that's made my day actually. But moving on, you mentioned Manchester City. They're always looking in the market for a deal. We've seen them chase Jack Grealish and Harry Kane this summer. Harry Kane seems to have died down a bit. Can you give us the latest updates on Manchester City and their pursuit of Jack Grealish and Kane?
Yeah, so, the issue Man City have got at the moment is that Spurs want around £140 million for Harry Kane, which is an expensive deal to do. Now, Harry Kane's stance is that he still wants to leave Spurs because he still wants Champions League football. And they brought a manager in that doesn't really have the winning pedigree that he would think. Now, if Conte came to Spurs, then absolutely you would have a different matter. But I just don't think they've got enough to keep Harry Kane. Now, if Manchester City go and bid 140 million, which hasn't been communicated yet, then I believe they will get Harry Kane. But the issue they've got is Levy's resisting offers. But I do think that Harry Kane does go in, and I do think Harry Kane needs to make an official request to leave Spurs. If he wants for the good of his career, he needs to go now. And that's no disrespect to Tottenham, because they're trying to build something different, and they've brought in the new manager, and they're trying to get different signings in. And I hope the success for them. But Harry Kane is now 28 years old, Fred, right? And he needs to be winning titles or getting to the top of his game.
Yeah.
And that is where the scenario is. So he needs to put an official request in, and then we might see more movement. And we're going to see maybe some movement in the next couple of weeks. Now, with Jack Grealish, Aston Villa want about 90 million to 100 million of what's been communicated. Now, he's a top quality player, but I'm not sure Man City, they can't do both deals for that case. So it might be a case of them trying to look for Sal, for instance. They might get involved in that deal. But Jack Grealish, Aston Villa have put a contract on the table that they think will make him stay. And obviously they're building a different type of project there as well. And they look like they're going to be underdogs next season. But he would like to go and play Champions League football. And the wages wouldn't be a problem for Man City. So if they fail in their pursuit with Harry Kane, they will try to get Jack Grealish. And we will probably see some updates around Jack Grealish in the next week or so, or the next couple of weeks. But Manchester City at the moment, there is nothing advanced, but they are actively keen on both players. But as I said, it just depends on finances and who they're going to sell. The likes of Mahrez or maybe Sterling might have to leave to accommodate those types of signings. So next couple of weeks, we'll see some interesting updates around that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Harry Kane needing to put in a transfer request. Do you realistically see him doing that? Because, I mean, he has been at Spurs, I think, his entire career.
Not
so
really.
is this something that he might do?
I mean, you might find this harsh, but I don't feel like Harry Kane has got that character about him to say, he's told him he wants to leave, but I don't think he'll put a request in. I don't think he's that, Sancho wasn't that type of character either. He was respectful. So he owes a lot to Spurs and the platform that he's given. But if he wants to elevate himself further, he's going to have to do something about it, because realistically, he's not going to win Premier League titles or Champions League football at Tottenham. And he's going to be remembered, as a top striker, Fred, but without any trophies. And you're now 28 years old. It is time that you have to go and do something in your career and say, okay, Levy, I want to leave. You're going to have to make this deal happen. And if Levy can get 140 million pounds from him, I would say sell. what are you going to do? You've got resale value there. You've got 140 million pounds that you can reinvest in your club, in players to move on. So, let Harry Kane go. Let him move on to what he wants to do. And Levy's quite stubborn in that sense. But we've seen it with Gareth Bale. We got a lot of money out of that. So I think he might be waiting for Man City to make a bigger offer. But you're not going to get 140 million next year for Harry Kane because he's getting older. So they need to make that deal happen, in my view. And Harry Kane needs to do something they normally probably wouldn't do on his day-to-day. And that's my opinion. I mean, that's not being harsh to Spurs. You'd probably agree with me, is that he's at a different point in his career. And Ronaldo did the same with Manchester United. Although he was winning things, he wanted to go and do something else in his career. I just think it's pivotal for Kane to move on. And I feel strongly about that one.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. But last thing we're going to talk about is Borussia Dortmund. As we know, Jadon Sancho is now a Manchester United player. Erling Haaland seems to be staying this summer since his price tag is quite hefty. What could we see for Dortmund next season in terms of signings?
Well, let's look at Haaland firstly. So, Chelsea haven't given up on the deal, but it's very unlikely because of the 150 million pound. People say, oh, that's a reasonable deal to do, but then you've got agent fees, and then you've got to pay his dad, and you've got all the contract fees. So it's a 200 million pound plus deal. Whereas next year it's under 100 million for the release clause, which is a little bit higher than 75 million from what I understand. But they're not going to have a chance next year. I don't see Haaland going to Chelsea next season. So, but they haven't done anything yet. They haven't made a bid. So it seems unlikely at the moment, but you never know with Roman Abramovich, as I said. But it's a difficult deal to do. But let's see, if Dortmund manage to get 2 or 3 replacements in, they could be a little bit more, say, okay, let's try and get this deal done now for more money, because they can say all they want about keeping Haaland and saying, oh, well, next season we'll only get 80 million, but this season we can get 172 million euros. They're a business as well. They like to make money. So, of course, that would be tempting. So let's see, that's not completely dead. Now, next season, I've been told there's a Manchester United, and I'm not going to declare it at the moment so people can guess really, that Manchester United will be back into the negotiations with Dortmund with another player next season, from my understanding, if midfield's permitted. So it'd be interesting. But I'm not going to ruin it just yet. I will reveal it at some point, but I'm sure people understand who that might be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But yeah, in terms of Sancho replacements, who could we see Dortmund sign? We've heard about Malin, etc.
And they've got I forgot his name, Makudi or whatever his name is. He would be a likely player, but obviously Malin is quite expensive, and we've got that particular agent, unfortunately, that's involved in that deal. So but I'm sure they'll get that deal over the line as soon as they can. But let's see. But Dortmund will definitely get some signings in and make some replacements. And they normally go for hidden gems and that sort of thing. So they might just suddenly pop out with a signing that we've never heard of, or it'd be an English striker that's 17 who's world class. So that's something that they always do and turn them into expensive signings. They're good at that. They've got that good scouting system, and they provide Champions League football for those kids anyway. So look at Jude Bellingham as well. Those sort of players who's probably worth more than Sancho now. So Dortmund will have some announcements in the next couple of weeks for sure. Yeah,
100%. Well, that brings us to the end of our podcast, where we just deliver the details on some transfer news. Before I close it off, Chris, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, one last thing was we forgot to mention, but Jules Koundé has rejected Tottenham, but he's waiting for the likes of Real Madrid or someone else bigger to come in. He was hoping he could go to Manchester United if Varane deal collapsed, but it doesn't look likely now. So just wanted to add on that. Make sure that you obviously like, subscribe, comment on our YouTube. We have a lot of new stuff coming out, which Fred can talk to you about. But as I said, it's been good today, but it'd be good to gauge your thoughts. Make sure you come into our Discord. We're nearly close to 900 members, so we're active on that one, and we're posting accordingly on Instagram and Twitter where we can.
Yeah, 100%. As Chris said, link in the Discord link will be in the description. Also, make sure to follow our socials, especially TikTok, where we post funny videos, short football videos, those kind of things. So yeah, hit the link in the description and follow all our socials. And Yeah, we'll see you in the next podcast.
Ciao, guys.
Showing off, don't wanna have to wait tonight. Better off, I'm gonna find my way tonight. Won't you talk to me? I wanna heal your sorrow. Won't you talk to me? We'll make a new tomorrow. Won't you talk to me? What makes this happy face? Showing off, don't wanna have to wait tonight. Better off, I'm gonna find my way tonight. Won't you talk to me? I wanna heal your sorrow. Won't you talk to me? We'll make a new tomorrow. Won't you talk to me? What makes this happy face do?
Walk to you so I can be close to you. It's really simple if you look at it that way. Time that we get by with money we don't know. Pockets empty but ours are full anyway. Hey, playing like children and love like R&J. You were too good for me, but I wanted you anyway. I always loved you over my head, even when you lived alone to make your parents mad. Say goodbye to your old life, turn the page, fall on my bed. I don't care if loving you over my head. Oh, everywhere. You take a picture of us kissing in cars. It makes my day 10 times better. Yeah, playing like children and love like RNG. You were too good for me, but I wanted you anyway. I always loved you over my head, even when you lived alone to make your parents mad.